Hey guys, it's Monica at Academic Phoenix Plus, and welcome to another Substance tutorial. This time we are going to be texturing this stool. And by the way, you can download this 3D model at academicphoenixplus.com under download. So check it out if you want to follow along. So in a previous tutorial, we already UV mapped this object where we use multiple types of UVs, planar mappy, cylindrical, so on and so forth. And this time we are ready to export this into a 2D software. Now, if you watch the how to texture a book in Substance Painter, which I'll leave the link here and also below, you guys will notice that any type of UV that is facing one particular direction, when you assign a texture, one of them will go the right direction and then this particular UV will go in another. So why don't we fix our UVs so that it will be easier to texture in Substance. Now this will work in, for example, Photoshop. So if I want to, I can easily put things in Photoshop and just kind of texture it. But in Substance, due to its proceduralism, you have to make sure that UVs are facing the right way. So let's go ahead and grab some UVs here, and I'm just going to go ahead and rotate them. So down here at the bottom, there's a rotate because I want them to be about the same as here. Now this is the bottom one, so I am going to scale it. Most people will not see the bottom part of the stool. And I'm going to put this at the top, which hopefully will give it enough space for the legs. If not, I'm going to tweak a couple other things, such as these guys can move over here. It's like Tetris. Do you guys hear the Tetris song when you guys do this? I sort of do. I hear it a lot. All right, let me just bring this up a little bit so they're not intersecting, maybe scale it a little larger. And just because I'd like to maximize my 0 to 1 space, again, I'm going to double click on these, just make these a little larger. And I think that's pretty good. So that's a nice thing about UV mapping is that once it's already UV mapped, you can lay it out any way you want. Okay, so I think this is a good place. Let's go ahead and go back to object mode, select everything. Delete the history, freeze the transformations, and this is a good opportunity to save. I'm going to go back into Maya Classic because we're done with this UV maps, and let's export this into an OBJ. So let's go to File, Export Selection. I'm going to scroll down, look for OBJ, and it's up to you if you guys want to place it in your scenes or if you like to place it in assets. I personally like to place it in assets. Let's go to assets. I'm going to call this my stool OBJ and export. All right, let's go into Substance Painter. This is the newest Substance Painter. Adobe has changed the icon, so it is still a Substance Painter. They changed a couple of things, but the theories are all still the same. Okay, so this is your welcome to Substance Painter. This is loading over here to the left. So it's a little bit different than what I'm used to, but again, everything is still the same. So let's go to File, New. And over here, we're going to choose PBR. And we have a variety of things. So let's grab the PBR Metallic Roughness and increase your document size to 2048. We're going to go to Select. Let's find our stool. Here it is. Bring in the OBJ and click OK. All right, there we are. Here's our fancy stool, and here is our UVs. Great. If you guys don't see this, just click up here and you got a variety of options. 3D only, 2D only, and then 3D, 2D, which is what I have. Okay, great. Remember, the first thing we need to do is go to Texture Sets. We need to bake all of our mesh maps. So go to Texture Set Settings. Let's go to Bake Mesh Maps. Let's change this to at least 2048, and I personally like to increase this to 128. Let's go down to Ambient Occlusion and increase our rays, and I also like to say ignore backface always. We can always go to Curvature Map and increase that as well. And then I just like to increase all of my rays, just so I can get a nice quality map. All right, just double check to make sure this is a 2048, and let's go ahead and bake selected textures. It's going to do its cool thing, baking all the occlusion, all the curvature maps, the ID maps, all of that stuff. It's great. Everything we need to make this work. All right, we are set. You can see over here to the right that we have all of our maps. So what type of stool do we want to make? I'm going to head back into my layers, and we have several options. I mean, we can make this out of wood, we can make it out of leather, basically you can do whatever you like. But I want the top to be made out of leather, and I want the legs to be made out of wood. So we have a couple of options here. Right now we are at the library and we're taking a look at just simple materials. And then over here we have our more complicated materials. So these are known as the smart materials. And over here we just have regular materials. So what I'm going to do is type in leather. And you'll notice that I have a couple of options, and we also have in the smart materials, we also have several leather as well. So it's really up to you which one you want to choose, but I personally like to use the smart materials because it gives me a little bit more control over what I want. So let's try a couple of them. So one couple of ways we can do this is like we can click and drag the leather onto the model, and it will apply it to everything. So this one's a nice looking leather because it's worn. I actually do want a nice worn looking leather. So this has a really nice potential, but let's just for fun, just take a look at others. That's a cool looking leather. That's another cool looking leather. So there's a couple of options that we can choose, but I personally like the original one, which is this leathered damage. So again, I just wanted to affect up here. So how do I do that? Well, the first thing I want to do is right click on this and create a black mask. So anything black we don't see and anything white we can't see. So if you want to, you can brush in the texture, but there's a more efficient way. Up here to the top left, we have this polygon fill. And what I can do is actually click and drag in the UVs and select the ones that I want. Now, right now, as you can see, we're using this option, which is selecting faces. If you want to click on this one, it will actually select a the full geometry. So for example, if I click on the leg, it will do the whole leg way faster. So I like the looks of that. It's looking pretty good, but I feel like the leather is a little large. So let's open up the smart material. There's a folder right here, and I'm going to take a look at which one is giving it this depth. So I'm going to turn this off and on. So that's the damage. This one is going to give you the edges. Over here, we have the leather pattern, and there you go. We found it. So let's click on this guy, and let's take a look at some of the options that it comes down here. And let's see what we can do. There is a scale. Whoop, there we go. So obviously, this is the one I want. So I'm going to go ahead and change it so it's a little bit smaller. Let's say around 8. So it still looks like leather, but it's just a bit smaller. So scaling is really important. I also feel it's a little shiny. So let's find out where that is. It looks like it's located in the base color. So again, I can turn all these off to find out which one is the shiny area. And it looks like the base color is the one that's shiny. Select the base color, scroll down, and then you find the roughness. So you can decrease the roughness, it makes it shinier, or we can decrease the roughness. So something like that. It's pretty clean, so if you want to break up the roughness even further, we can actually add our own layer in here, and it only affects roughness. So let's say I'm going to create a fill layer. It's going to make it all white, but I only want roughness. So I'm going to remove the color, height, metal, just get rid of everything basically. All right. And in here, we can actually attach a roughness map. So again, you can see that it overpowers the previous roughness. So I'm going to grab this, and we have a variety of things we can choose from. We can choose, let's see, we can choose the first ones, I guess. So it's going to give you this really interesting range of dark and light. We can play around with the balance. We can increase or decrease the contrast. We can also invert it. So now it looks like it's wet. So it's kind of fun. And a couple of other things we can play around with. Now, I do like the fact that it's got a lot of noise. I think it's a little blotchy. Let's see if I can maybe increase the scale a little bit so it's not so strong. And then finally over here, we can control how much we see of the specularity. If I take this fill layer and I try to remove it, you'll notice that it doesn't really do anything because we're only impacting the base color. So let's go into roughness, and then we can go in here and decrease the roughness. And that looks much better. So that gives me complete control over my specularity. So now I have some roughness maps, and it's a little, I can still change things. So if I want more balance, maybe higher contrast, things like that. So it gives you an ability to kind of change the leather look a little bit more. So again, I'm here, I'm going to reduce it even further just because I feel like it's a little wet, and I think that looks pretty good. Cool. So that gives me access to the roughness. Let's change this a little bit more. Let's go to 10. So I'm going to type this in as a roughness. Let's see. Let's take a look at the damage. And the first thing you'll notice is that you're going to want to scale it, but you can't. That's because this damage is driven by the mask. So if I turn off the mask, right click, if I remove the mask, you'll see that the original texture is like this, just a regular beige looking texture. But with the mask, they managed to get it to look like this. So the mask is the one that's driving it, and we're going to take a look at the mask editor. All right, so with the mask editor, we can mess around with the texture. As you can see, this is the texture. So if I want a little bit more, I can. There seems to be a texture too. So again, you get to play around with that. You can change the ambient occlusion if you want to, which is impacting the bottom the most. So you can see here at the bottom that if I want less ambient occlusion to drive it, that will make it look better that way. We can keep scrolling down. There's a curvature map that's driving it, so we can use that. And there's just a lot of things that you guys can play around with to make it look a little bit different. So if you want it to be a little, using the thickness map, you can wear it more out in the corners. So it's pretty powerful. The software is very powerful. So there's a histogram contrast, and I'm going to go, as you can see, I can kind of increase the contrast a little bit more. And you can play around with the disorder. So if you're not a fan of what it looks like right now, you can just kind of move this around and see if this looks better. All right, cool. So now we have our smart material for our leather. Very cool. And next, what we want to do is create the wood. So same story, we have wood over here. And you can type in wood. And again, you can use the regular material or the smart material. And we have a couple of options. I'm going to grab one of them and just either drag it into the model. You can drag it into the UVs or just drag it into the layers. And then we have this option. So this is one option. These are all done procedurally. So everything's driven by Substance Painter. So it's really up to you which one you like. And I actually like this one a lot. I feel like it kind of matches and it's got a nice personality. So let me delete the other two and keep this one. And this is going to be the wood. I'm going to open it up. And again, it's up to you if you want to make any changes to it. So for example, what does sharpen do? You can just barely see it, but sharpen does in fact sharpen some of the dirt options. We have stains. So what if you wanted to increase more stains? What if you wanted more white stains? What if you wanted more dirt? Things like that. So just kind of play around with what Substance provides, just so you can see what type of A, you can actually create your own stuff, and B, how to control it. So I like the look of it, but I really want to see a little bit more stains. So I'm going to click on this option, click on the mask, because clearly it's driving it. And then we're going to go to the grunge map and play around. Do I want to increase or decrease the balance? By decreasing the balance, it makes it a little bit dirtier, which is actually kind of nice. I can decrease the contrast. So you guys can see that instead of being pure black, I can kind of make it a little bit less contrast. I can increase the pattern. So you can see that it's driven by, and it's really noticeable here. You can increase the brush pattern so that it goes a little higher. You can play around with the cracks, things like that. You can invert it, which doesn't do anything. So let me just bring some of this back, decrease the contrast a little bit, and just kind of play around with this so that it looks, I want it to look a little dirty. And again, if you feel like this is too strong, you can always go to the, grab the color map and decrease. Now you'll notice that nothing is happening, and that's because I forgot to change this back to base color. So make sure you change that back to base color. And now I can control the opacity. I'm going to change it to around, I'm going to type it in, just type in like 85. Okay, now I'm being picky, 90. Cool. All right, cool. We now have textured our stool. So let's export our textures. Let's double click on this up here at the top, and I'd like to call this shader. And we're going to go to File, Export Textures. This is where you need to find out where to put it. All right, I like to put it in Source Images, which is where Maya looks for textures. And go ahead and put it in substance. You don't have to, but I do put it in the substance. Let's see, PNGs are good for me, but you guys can change it here to something else. I'm going to click on the shader and we can take a look at the base color. Yes, I need that. Roughness is fine. Metallic. I don't think I have metallic, but what the heck. Normal, height. And I don't really have anything that glows. But I'm going to go in here, just turn this one off because I don't need it. And let's see, anything else. 2048 map is good. And let's export. Looks like everything's working. And let's hop back into Maya. All right, now we're using an Arnold AI standard surface, and I'm going to put in a light source so we can see what it looks like. And of course, a floor would be great so that, actually, let me use something circular so the edges aren't distracting. And let's see what this looks like. Okay, so I paused it just because I don't think you guys need to watch it render. But as you can see, it's really dark. And the reason why is because this model was built in an older Maya. And they have different color management in like Maya 2015, whenever this was built, to the current Maya. So let's fix that. You just need to go to Windows, Settings and Preferences. And we're going to go to color management and turn this on. So whatever's happening in the legacy is basically going to be converted to what we are using right now. And now when we render, and again, I'm going to hit pause. You can see that it's significantly better. It's much brighter and it's much more accurate. So let me switch this around so we get the brighter side of the stool and render. There it is. I'm going to take a snapshot of it. Definitely easier to see. Uses a physical sky to light it. And let's start adding the textures. So I'm going to select my model, all of my models and not the base. Assign a new material. I'm going to grab an Arnold AI standard surface because I am rendering in Arnold. Over here's my base. Here's my color. Let's click on it. Base color, file, folder, substance, and looks crazy, but there it is. Open. I'm going to render it just so we can see the effects. I'm also going to slightly rotate my camera so I can see it. Cool. Color map looks very nice. It's very glossy, but you can see that the difference between this one and this one, it's already has a lot more personality, but let's make it even better. Let's hop one back by clicking on this connection, which takes you back to the connection. I'm going to call this Stool Shader just because I'm here. And let's go to Roughness. Click on this little guy, File, Folder, Roughness, and Render. So you can see that it's missing some specularity, and I did not take a snapshot of the previous one. And I'm going to show you how to break a connection. Let's say you accidentally put the wrong texture in. I'm going to go back. I'm going to right click on the word roughness and then choose the third option, which is break connection. So I just want to take a screenshot of it. So let me try rendering that again. Okay, this is what it looks like without the roughness map. This is what it looks like with the roughness map, but we still need to make some changes so there's actually some sort of specularity. So let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to reconnect, press stop here. Connect a roughness map, file, folder, roughness. And what you need to do is go to the color space and choose raw. Now let's see what that looks like. Still giving us a similar effect as if there is no specularity, but there's one last thing we need to do. We need to go to the color balance and choose alpha is luminance. And let's see. Now the subtleness is hard to see, but if I flip back and forth, and maybe if I zoom in here, you guys can see that there is a little bit of that roughness map that kind of appears and disappears. That's actually the roughness map. So some areas that are a little rougher than others, some glow a little bit more. It's very subtle, but it's there. And I can later on try to make it pop. Oh, it's still rendering. Let me just focus here. Actually, let me grab the whole group and press F to focus. I'm going to hit 1, 1. Okay, we're back to normal. Well, it's going to jump a little bit, but life moves on. All right, let's go ahead and click on that. If you guys want to play around with more specularity and give you more options, you can still play around with the options in roughness. So for example, if I go to roughness and click on this, we do have exposure, default color, and a couple other color balances. So for example, if I want to make this darker, You can see that it's already glossier, and I can actually change this. And now we'll see how my computer handles it as I try to change this live. Usually I stop everything, but you can increase that value and just keep changing it. You can see how it's reacting. So here you can by playing around with the exposure. You can also play around with the grain, the color gain, and also the color offset. So there's a couple of options you guys can use to push the texture in Maya. You don't have to go back into Substance and change it. You can also go into Photoshop and alter it, or just use the options here in Maya. All right, okay, now that we have that, I'm going to take a look at the assets here, the new textures that we have in Substance, and I'm going to take a look at metalness. So metalness, probably since we don't have any metal, is going to be black, so I'm not even going to bother attaching a metalness, and actually I'm just going to delete it. And next we have normal. So far we have, this is what it looks like with the Lambert. This is with just the base color. This is with the Specularity map. And let's move on to the normal map. Okay, so right now it's in gray Lambert here in the preview. If you hit the number 6 on your keyboard, you will see the actual object. And if you don't want to see the wireframe, just turn off wireframe right here. So we have the basics. And if you find this background distracting, you can always go to show and hide the lights. So then you have this object. And why not? Let's turn off the grid. So this is what we have so far. We can also turn on occlusion if you want to. So it gives it a fake occlusion at the bottom, kind of like a preview. Just wanted to kind of clean up the preview window. Let's go to the shader, and under bump mapping, we want to go all the way down to geometry and then go to bump mapping. Click on this little output connection. We're going to go to a file. And the first thing we need to do is change this bump into tangent space normal. So a bump map is a black and white image, and tangent space normals is what we're using, which is a normal map. Let's open up Arnold and turn off flip R. And under bump value, there's a connection. That's where we plug in the texture. So click on the little connection. Going to go to that folder, go to that substance folder and look for normal. There it is. Now you'll notice that the shading changed a little bit on the preview, but one of the things we need to make sure is that we change this to raw. And now you'll see that it looks way better. Like, going to go to that. That's really important, is change the color space to raw, and also to make sure the flip R is off. All right, let's see what that looks like. So this is what it looks like right now, and this is what it was without it. A little hard to tell, so let's just zoom in a little bit closer just so we can compare. So you'll notice that the worn areas are pushed inwards, and the textures is actually showing up. So before it would look like this, now it has a little bit of information, which is great. A little bit more noticeable is also on the legs. You'll notice that the legs actually have scratches, and it's reacting to the light and the shadow. So that's really great. All right, let's hit 1-1 again to make sure. And that is how you texture a stool in Substance. So you bring it from Maya, already UV mapped, you export the OBJ, you bring it into Substance Painter, texture it the way you like it, export the textures, and bring it back into Maya to have a final piece. So hopefully you guys found that helpful. Let me know by leaving a comment below. Again, you can download this file or this stool at academicphoenixplus.com, where you can UV map it and texture it so you can follow along in these videos and create something similar. If you do something like that, I would love for you guys to tag me in social media. I am in Instagram, and I'm also in Facebook as well as in Twitter. So if you want to tag me, that would be amazing. I would love to see your work, especially if my video tutorials have somehow helped you become a stronger artist. That would be amazing. I would love to see it. So you can find me at Academic Phoenix Plus. All my social media links are found below. Again, you can download this model at academicphoenixplus.com and also sign up for my newsletter to find out what's going on with the channel, with me and with everything else. So take a look at academicphoenixplus.com. Again, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you find these videos helpful. And don't forget to share if you feel that somebody out there could use a little bit of help with Substance Painter. I would love for you guys to share my videos. Again, thank you so much. Keep creating, and I will see you next time.